When I grow up, I'm going to be someone big. Not tall, though I hope that too, but important, the kind of person people look at and say, there he goes, and they mean it in a good way, not the way teachers say it when you forget your homework again. I don't know exactly what I'll be yet. Maybe an inventor who builds machines that fix everything and make people clap, or a famous explorer who finds places that weren't on the map before I put them there, or maybe a hero, not the cape kind, but the kind whose name people whisper like it's a secret candle they're afraid to blow out. I just know I won't be ordinary. Ordinary feels like a tiny box, and I don't fit in it, not even if I curl up really tight. I watch adults walking to work with their serious faces and grocery bags, and I think, that won't be me. I'm going to do something huge. When I look at myself in the mirror, sometimes I pretend I'm giving a speech to a giant crowd, or signing an autograph, or coming back home after saving the whole world before dinner. Even when I'm scared, like when the house gets too quiet or the dark feels too heavy, I tell myself that people who become great were scared too, and they still kept going. I imagine my future like a long road covered in fireworks, with everyone cheering as I walk through. I promise myself I'll never get stuck, never settle, never shrink into someone who just lives. I'll be big enough that nobody forgets I was here. Big enough that even grown-ups stop and listen. Big enough that the world notices when I step into it. I don't know how it will happen, but I feel it, like a balloon inside my chest trying to lift me higher than everything around me. I just have to grow up, and then everything will finally begin.
You know, kid, I carried that same balloon in my chest for a long time. Longer probably than most people would admit out loud. I kept waiting for the moment when the world would suddenly point at me and say, "Ah, there he is, the important one." I thought greatness would arrive with some kind of ceremony. A door opening, a spotlight, a sign so clear even I couldn't miss it. But life didn't unfold like a movie. It unfolded like laundry, slowly, regularly, a little wrinkled, and usually when I was too tired to appreciate it. I didn't become an inventor or explorer or hero. I became a person who woke up early for work because someone had to pay the electricity bill. A person who bought groceries on Tuesdays because the store was less crowded then. A person who fixed a leaky faucet on the third try and felt strangely proud about it. None of this ever felt big, not the way you picture it now, with fireworks and cheering crowds. My days were mostly quiet, and not in the poetic way, just quiet in the sense that nothing dramatic ever happened. And for a long time, I thought that meant I had failed that promise you made, the one about never becoming ordinary. But here's the thing I learned slowly, almost reluctantly. Ordinary doesn't show up all at once. It arrives in small exchanges. The morning nod to a neighbor, the familiar creak of your own floorboards, the habit of buying the same bread every week because you know it won't disappoint you. I didn't notice myself settling. I only noticed one day that settling had already happened, like dust collecting on a shelf you forgot to wipe. There were chances, sure. Moments where life tilted and whispered, "If you step through this door, things might change." But those doors always appeared at inconvenient times. I was too tired, too unsure, too busy making plans for the great future I was convinced was still ahead. And while I was waiting for something enormous, I let small, meaningful opportunities drift past me like boats I assumed would circle back. Some never did. Most never do. You imagine you'll be someone unforgettable, and then, little by little, you become someone who blends into the background, not because you lack talent or courage, but because blending is easier than constantly straining for the sky. I used to picture the world pausing when I walked into a room. Instead, I became someone people passed in the supermarket without looking twice. And you know what surprised me most? How normal that felt after enough years. How soft life becomes when it stops demanding applause. But also, and this is the part that stings a bit, how quietly your childhood ambitions fade, like photos left in sunlight. Sometimes I lie awake and try to find the exact moment I stopped trying to be big, but there isn't one. It wasn't a dramatic surrender, just a long series of small, practical choices. A job that wasn't my dream but paid on time. A move I didn't want but made sense. A love I didn't fight hard enough for. A comfort that slowly replaced aspiration. I'm not telling you this to say I regret everything. I don't. My life wasn't bad. It was just simpler than I once imagined. Quieter, smaller. The kind of life you don't write stories about, but still a life someone lived. And somewhere along the way I realized something that both hurt and soothed me. Being someone big was never about the world noticing me. It was about me noticing my own life. And I didn't. Not often enough. Not early enough. I spent so long trying to become extraordinary that I missed the quiet, ordinary moments that were asking to be cherished. I thought I needed greatness. Turns out I just needed to show up fully for the small things. But I learned that too late to build the life I once thought I'd grow into. Now I just look back and think, maybe big was never the right word. Maybe I should have aimed to be present instead. But that's something you only understand on the return journey. If you're still listening, kid, I want you to know something gently without bitterness. Life didn't shrink because I was weak. It shrank because I kept postponing the moments that could have stretched it wider. I kept thinking, not yet, later, when I'm ready. But readiness is a story we tell ourselves to avoid the discomfort of beginning. I waited for the perfect time to chase the things that once set my imagination on fire. Writing that book, learning that craft, moving to that city, taking that risk, and perfect time never knocked. Instead, ordinary time kept showing up, asking small, steady things of me. Pay this bill, help this person, fix this problem, stay on this path because it's safer than the unknown. None of it was wrong. It just wasn't what the child version of me had promised. I thought I'd be famous or brilliant or at least remarkable. Instead, I became someone you wouldn't notice unless I dropped something in a quiet room. I used to think that was failure. Now, I think it's just one of many shapes a life can take when you don't steer it too firmly. There were mornings I woke up with a feeling, a kind of tug, like something inside me whispering, start now. But I had work, or a cold, or the dishwasher broke, and slowly the tug stopped tugging. Not dramatically, not all at once. It just faded, the way a dream fades when you try too hard to remember it. And yet, even with all that, my life wasn't empty. It was filled with routines that became familiar, faces that drifted in and out, small successes that felt large for a day or two. I laughed more than I cried. I ate good soup and bad soup. I had a chair that knew my shape and a street that knew my footsteps. There's peace in that, a kind of quiet pride in simply existing without causing too much harm. But sometimes, especially in the slow hours of the evening, I feel the echo of that childhood ambition like a distant drum. It doesn't hurt. It just reminds me that I once expected a great height from myself and instead built a life very close to the ground. And maybe that's fine. Maybe the world doesn't need millions of extraordinary people. Maybe a life can be gentle and small and still have value. Still, when I sit here and look back, I can't help but think about all the versions of me that never got to exist. The inventor, the explorer, the hero, the man who left a dent in the world instead of a soft thumbprint. They were real once, as real as I am now, just unrealized. I don't mourn them exactly, but I nod to them sometimes, the way you nod to someone you recognize across a street, but don't go over to greet. They lived in the spaces where I hesitated. They lived in the maybe tomorrow that never quite became today. And if I have one truth left in me, not advice, not a rule, just a quiet truth, it's that a life becomes small very gradually, not because it must, but because it's easier. Comfort is a slow, warm tide. It feels good while it rises, and by the time you notice you're stuck in place, the shore is already far behind you. I didn't drown, I just didn't swim, and the world stayed exactly the size I allowed it to be. So here I am, kid. The same kid you were, just with a softer voice and a slower heartbeat, trying to explain a life that didn't turn out grand, but still turned out. I used to think I'd get one dramatic moment that would change everything, something cinematic, something you could point to and say, that's when it all shifted. But there wasn't one. My life changed the way seasons do, so gradually that by the time I noticed the leaves had fallen, winter had already been there for weeks. I didn't become someone big. I became someone steady, someone who learned how to make peace with doing the dishes, with paying bills late sometimes, with loving quietly, with waking up to the same streetlight shining through the same window year after year. I thought I'd travel the world. Instead, I learned the names of my neighbor's dogs. I thought I'd build something huge. Instead, I kept small promises to people who barely remember them now. I thought I'd be extraordinary. Instead, I was simply here, moving through days that didn't demand much and didn't offer much either. And maybe, though it took me a lifetime to say this without flinching, maybe that's its own kind of existence. Not better, not worse, just different from the one you imagined so fiercely at 9 years old. The truth is, I'm not disappointed anymore. Not in the sharp way I was in my 40s, when I still believed I could outrun time if I just tried harder tomorrow. Now it's a gentler feeling, like touching a scar you forgot you had, not painful, just familiar. Sometimes I look out the window at ordinary people doing ordinary things, and I realize I became one of them. Not a name in a book, not a statue, not a story people repeat, just a person who lived quietly and left behind a life that fit inside 4 walls and a few memories. And if you're asking whether I regret not becoming someone big, the answer is yes and no. I regret the moments I shrank myself out of fear. I regret the days I waited for the world to hand me purpose instead of making something small with my own hands. I regret the years I spent hoping for a sign instead of taking a step. But the rest, the simplicity, the routine, the quiet comforts, I've made peace with those. They're not the enemy. They're just the outcome of choices I made softly instead of boldly. If you're still sitting there inside me, wearing those oversized dreams like armor, I won't tell you what to do with them. I won't say aim high or be realistic. I'm not here to guide you. I'm just here to admit that my life turned out small, and that smallness isn't tragic. It's just the shape of the life I lived, because I didn't push hard enough to change it. If you're young now, you have time to make it wider, or taller, or stranger, or louder. Or maybe you'll make it soft and gentle like mine. I don't know. I won't choose for you. I'm only telling you this much. I once wanted to be someone big, and instead I became someone who simply existed. And sometimes, in the quiet of late evenings, I catch myself wondering, not with regret, but with curiosity, what might have happened if I had taken just one step more than I did. That question stays with me like a small light in a long hallway. I don't know what you'll do with your life. I just hope you don't wait as long as I did to decide what size it should be.